Jack LaLanne was doing fingertip push-ups on live television while doctors were telling people that exercise after 50 was dangerous. He was right, they were wrong. And this bread is part of why. I came across V10 protein bread while going down a rabbit hole on LaLanne's original nutrition philosophy, and what I found genuinely bothered me. Not because the bread was extraordinary, but because it was obvious. Ingredients every household already had. A loaf that delivered real, complete protein per slice for pennies, sitting right there in the 1950s, and somehow we ended up here, 60 years later, paying $40 a month for powder in a plastic tub. I rebuilt the recipe, baked it myself, ran the numbers on the protein per slice. It beats Whey, actually rivals it for a fraction of the cost. Everything is sourced and linked in the description. One question before we start: did anyone in your family bake their own bread growing up? Drop it below. I'm genuinely curious what people remember. You likely remember the aesthetic of those early broadcasts. The rabbit ear antennas required constant adjustment just to get a clear picture of a man in a tailored jumpsuit doing one-armed pull-ups on a studio set. Jack LaLanne was already an uncomfortable contradiction to everything the medical establishment believed about aging. He was preaching protein and resistance training to housewives and retirees a full 2 decades before the fitness industry existed as a concept. His show aired early in the morning. His audience treated him less like a fitness host and more like a Sunday morning preacher delivering genuinely good news. He told them the body could be rebuilt at any age with the right inputs. LaLanne had a core philosophy that was deceptively simple and infuriating to the era's food conglomerates. He believed the American diet had drifted so far from whole nutrient-dense food that most people weren't aging naturally at all. They were starving slowly on full stomachs. He was right. The post-war food industry had industrialized bread. Factories stripped wheat of its germ and bran to extend shelf life. They removed precisely the components that made wheat nutritionally meaningful in the first place. The protein-rich embryo was gone. The B vitamins were gone. What remained was white flour. It was a refined carbohydrate that fed hunger without feeding muscle. Picture those pristine white loaves sitting on Formica kitchen tables across the country. They looked like progress. They were actually nutritional bankruptcy. It was exactly into this context that V10 protein bread arrived from a Minnesota bakery. This was a direct commercial response to what LaLanne was telling millions of Americans they desperately needed. The bread rode his cultural momentum proudly. Its marketing claimed that 2 slices per meal delivered complete natural protein equal to that found in meat and dairy. It worked with the exact organization responsible for fortifying milk with vitamin D. This gave the product a scientific credibility that was incredibly unusual for a baked good. The newspaper ads targeted the LaLanne viewer directly. They knew this viewer was looking for an affordable, everyday way to get muscle-building nutrients. The math behind the claims of V10 was ambitious. 2 slices per meal over 3 meals a day across the average household meant a family was theoretically going through a full loaf every single day. 7 loaves a week delivered by the milkman. Whether that specific protein claim held up to modern clinical scrutiny is a separate question entirely. What it reveals is that the market for high-protein everyday food was massive. It was driven by a single man on a television set who believed ordinary people deserved extraordinary nutrition. V10 didn't survive the shifting cultural tides. By the late 1960s, it abandoned its science-forward identity for a bizarre mascot and quietly disappeared from shelves. But the foundational idea simply waited for someone to build it properly. What LaLanne understood is that whole wheat in its unprocessed form is a complete nutrition package. The wheat kernel contains the starchy endosperm and the fibrous bran and the embryo germ. The germ is where almost everything nutritionally important lies. When LaLanne talked about protein bread, he was describing what bread was before industrial milling prioritized shelf life over human health. His bread philosophy was a direct recovery of what bread had been before the industry made it worse. The recipe you are about to learn is built on that exact same logic. We are using whole ingredients and real protein sources, and absolutely nothing requiring a chemical factory to produce. Every ingredient has a documented physiological role and a real nutritional function. A single slice of this loaf delivers approximately 7 to 9 grams of protein depending on how thick you cut it. 2 slices at breakfast provides up to 18 grams of highly bioavailable protein. This easily pushes an older adult past the vital anabolic threshold required to trigger actual muscle protein synthesis. That threshold matters deeply because seniors experience anabolic resistance. Your muscle has a reduced sensitivity to protein signals. The dose per meal matters far more than just the daily total. Getting enough protein across 2 meals does not produce the same muscle response as spreading it across 3 meals that each clear the threshold individually. Hit like and subscribe if this is landing for you. Now, we will build this bread ingredient by ingredient. You begin this process by establishing the structural base of the bread with 2 full cups of authentic stone ground whole wheat flour. This specific flour is mandatory because stone grinding is a slow mechanical process. It retains the delicate germ and bran that high-speed roller mills obliterate with extreme heat. The germ fraction is where the vitamin E and the crucial amino acid profile reside. These compounds make the wheat protein meaningfully useful for your body rather than just nutritionally decorative. You cannot substitute cheap all-purpose white flour here. Doing so removes the entire physiological purpose of this loaf. If you want a nuttier flavor profile, you can replace up to half a cup with spelt flour. Spelt handles identically in this dough while offering a marginally higher protein density. You place those 2 cups of flour into a large mixing bowl. This is the structural foundation upon which we will build the entire protein matrix. Next, you integrate the primary protein amplifier by adding half a cup of dry whole milk powder directly into the flour. The mid-century pantry always had a box of dry milk powder sitting on the shelf for budget stretching. Those families did not realize they were casually utilizing one of the most effective muscle-preserving compounds ever isolated. Powdered whole milk adds casein and whey protein simultaneously to your dry mixture. You get the slow-release fractions and the fast-release fractions working together. You also get calcium and vitamin D in a form integrating completely into the dough without changing its texture or requiring moisture adjustments. This single addition adds roughly 16 grams of complete dairy protein to the full loaf. That equals roughly 1 extra gram per slice. The Journal of Applied Physiology published clinical data showing combining casein and whey produces a superior prolonged anabolic window in older adults compared to whey alone. Baking denatures the physical shape of the protein, but it never eliminates it. The amino acid profile remains entirely digestible after being subjected to oven heat. Our dairy sensitivities, you can easily source lactose-free skim milk powder. It retains the identical protein content while removing the digestive friction completely. You then boost the germ fraction by adding 1/4 cup of raw wheat germ to the dry bowl. You are manually putting back what the industrial milling machines intentionally threw away. Raw wheat germ contributes 4 solid grams of plant protein per 1/4 cup alongside natural vitamin E and essential healthy fats. You must keep your wheat germ tightly sealed in the refrigerator because the polyunsaturated fats will oxidize at room temperature and turn rancid very quickly. A rancid ingredient ruins the flavor of the entire loaf. A trial published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition linked high dietary intake of wheat germ to reduced oxidative stress markers in seniors. This is crucial because systemic inflammation actively blocks muscle repair in older adults. By lowering the inflammation, you clear the metabolic path for the protein to actually do its job. I highly recommend you toast the wheat germ lightly in a dry cast iron skillet for 3 minutes before adding it to the bowl. This step deepens its flavor and makes the resulting bread far more delicious as a daily staple. The fourth component is 2 large whole eggs. The health industry spent decades demonizing the exact food providing the most perfect protein on Earth. Eggs serve a massive dual function in this loaf. They provide physical structure by binding the dough and contributing to the rise. Nutritionally, they add roughly 12 grams of complete protein containing the full leucine profile your body requires for immediate muscle repair. The yolk is absolutely not optional in this application. It contains the essential dietary cholesterol and fats, slowing the absorption of the bread protein. This produces a sustained amino acid release rather than a useless fast spike. Research out of the University of Illinois demonstrated consuming whole eggs triggers a 40% greater muscle protein synthesis response compared to consuming equivalent protein from egg whites alone. The researchers pointed directly to the yolk lipids as the driver of this enhanced anabolic signaling. Removing the yolk for outdated cholesterol reasons removes the core mechanism making the protein in this loaf work. Now you add the metabolic catalyst by measuring 2 tablespoons of brewer's yeast into the dry ingredients. This is not the active baking yeast you will use later, and it is not nutritional yeast. This is a dried whole food ingredient contributing the densest natural concentration of B-complex vitamins available in any single food. Why does a muscle bread need B vitamins? Because these vitamins act as the required cellular cofactors, allowing your aging body to actually convert the protein you eat into usable tissue. Without them, the protein simply gets catabolized for basic energy. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed older populations with subclinical B vitamin deficiencies experience accelerated lean tissue loss regardless of their total protein intake. You have to unlock the door before you can deliver the bricks. The flavor of brewer's yeast is assertive and highly unfamiliar to modern palates. It brings a malty, savory sharpness to the crumb. Those who learned to bake in the 50s knew this flavor profile well. It gave homemade bread a rustic, robust character factory loaves lacked. If hesitant, start with 1 tablespoon. You whisk the brewer's yeast thoroughly into the dry mixture until uniform. The leavening agent comes next in the form of 2¼ teaspoons of active dry yeast. This is exactly 1 standard packet. You do not add this to the dry bowl. You must bloom it first in a separate container to activate the living element of the bread. To feed that yeast, you will need 2 tablespoons of raw honey. Raw honey retains its natural polyphenol content processed honey loses during pasteurization. You activate the yeast by dissolving it in 3/4 cup of warm water along with a pinch of that honey. The water must be between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Warmer water instantly kills the fragile single-celled yeast organisms, and cooler water simply does not activate them properly. You let this mixture sit undisturbed for 10 minutes until the surface is visibly foamy. A paper in Food Microbiology confirmed honey provides a superior monosaccharide feed for yeast compared to refined white sugar. It accelerates the initial fermentation phase by up to 15%, creating a stronger rise in heavy protein dough. If the mixture does not foam after 10 minutes, your yeast is dead. The loaf will not rise. Throw the liquid out and start over. While the yeast is blooming, you whisk 1½ teaspoons of salt into your dry ingredients. Salt controls the fermentation rate and strengthens the physical dough structure. It is the literal difference between a loaf with developed flavor and one that tastes like wet cardboard regardless of what else is inside it. Do not reduce the salt. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry demonstrated proper sodium chloride levels in dough specifically regulate the enzymatic breakdown of starches during baking. Finally, you measure 2 tablespoons of high-quality olive oil. Fat slows the digestion of carbohydrates and creates a sustained release of amino acids. Adding a pure lipid like olive oil to a carbohydrate matrix significantly blunts the post-meal glycemic response. It flattens the blood sugar curve perfectly. You will add this oil to the wet mixture right before combining everything. The oil adds essential moisture to the final loaf. It extends the shelf life and softens the crumb. A loaf made without any fat goes stale within 24 hours at room temperature. With olive oil, it stays soft for 3 or 4 days and freezes beautifully. Now you execute the physical protocol. You have your bowl of thoroughly whisked dry ingredients containing the flour and milk powder and wheat germ and brewer's yeast and salt. In a separate large bowl, you have your bloomed yeast mixture. You add the eggs and the remaining honey and the olive oil directly into that active yeast liquid. You whisk them together until the eggs are completely broken down and pale yellow. Gradually work the dry ingredients into this wet bowl. Use a heavy wooden spoon and mix until a shaggy heavy dough forms. Turn this sticky mass out onto a lightly floured surface. You must knead this dough with brutal intention for 8 to 10 minutes. You push away with the heel of your hand and fold the dough back over itself in a continuous rhythmic motion. You are manually developing the gluten strands, trapping the carbon dioxide and giving the bread its physical structure. You push and fold until the dough becomes smooth and slightly tacky but not actively sticky. It should spring back immediately when you poke it with your finger. Whole wheat dough will never feel as silky as white flour dough because the sharp bran particles physically interrupt the gluten network. It should hold together cohesively without tearing. If it feels too stiff, add water 1 single teaspoon at a time. If kneading is physically difficult due to hand or wrist issues, this dough works beautifully in a stand mixer. Use a dough hook on medium speed for 7 minutes with no technique adjustment required whatsoever. Shape the kneaded dough into a tight ball and place it in a lightly oiled bowl. Cover it with a damp cloth. You let it rise in a warm spot for 60 to 90 minutes until it has fully doubled in size. A cold kitchen will stall this process significantly. Placing the bowl in an oven with just the internal oven light turned on creates a reliably warm environment without any temperature guesswork. Once it has doubled, you punch the dough down forcefully to release the trapped gas. You shape it into a tight log matching the exact length of a standard 9 by 5 inch loaf pan. Place the log seam side down into the oiled pan. Cover it again and let it rise a second time for 45 to 60 minutes. You are waiting for the dough to crown roughly 1 inch above the metal rim. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. You bake the loaf for 30 to 35 minutes until the top crust is a deep, beautiful golden brown. The loaf should sound hollow when you tap it firmly on the bottom. The absolute most reliable indicator of doneness is an internal temperature of 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit on an instant read thermometer. This is far more dependable than checking color or guessing by the clock. You must let the finished loaf rest on a wire cooling rack for at least 45 minutes before even thinking about slicing it. Cutting into hot bread instantly compresses the delicate crumb and produces a gummy, dense texture. The internal steam is still actively finishing the bake during this cooling window. This resting step is strictly non-negotiable. It determines whether the loaf slices cleanly or collapses completely into itself. If you want to push the nutritional profile even further, you have optional additions worth exploring. Working 2 tablespoons of natural peanut butter directly into the dough adds approximately 7 grams of extra protein to the full loaf. It brings a subtle nuttiness pairing incredibly well with the toasted wheat germ. It integrates completely and does not affect the rise or final texture. You can also press 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds into the top surface right before baking. This adds a satisfying crust texture alongside a meaningful hit of natural zinc and magnesium. These specific minerals play a direct role in muscle contraction and central nervous system recovery. Finally, you could replace 1 tablespoon of the olive oil in the dough with 1 tablespoon of flaxseed oil brushed onto the finished loaf immediately after baking. Never bake with flaxseed oil because it degrades badly at high heat. Brushing it on the warm crust adds plant-based omega-3 fatty acids to every single slice without any detectable flavor change. You have bypassed the modern supplement industry entirely. You are holding a piece of legitimate nutritional history in your hands.
Hey, if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments down below any question you have, and I will reply to it as soon as possible. And if you want to, check out this video. You will probably like it too. Thanks for watching.